2011, sorry, there was a telecom commission before in 2004, but then it was converged into a convergent regulator. And so the licensing system, which liberalized the market, was replacing all state monopoly. But even in the year 2015, we still see remnants of the status quo of the monopoly from the past, and that's very clearly reflected in the control over these so-called international internet gateways. This picture may give you not a very exact picture of what's going on, but because we don't have a single gateway, we have several gateways that are actually 9 operators of IIGs or International Internet Gateways. But Cat Telecom, which was the former state monopoly, maintained the biggest international internet gateway because they're the only one that own the submarine cable that connect them to Singapore. The other players own only landlines and which are not laid in optimal route because the optimal routes are already occupied by Cat Telecom. So when you talk to other players in the industry, they said that it's very difficult for them to compete, and this had made the prices of internet connection very high because Cat Telecom charges very high for connection. So ISPs have to rely on Cat Telecom because they have the largest network. Anyway, so in terms of popular internet use, we have Facebook, of course, as number 1, and Line as number 2. And actually, if you look across the countries, we have the second most number of Line application users, second only to Japan. So Line is very popular here. Similar to WhatsApp, for those of you who don't know. Moving on to internet governance. As part of my research, I did a chronology of development on IG in Thailand, focusing mostly on local processes, but also in terms of the connection with the global fora. Since the year 2000, we've seen that there's been government representation at the Government Advisory Council, the ICANN, and until today, we still have representation there at GSC. And actually, our representative is he's the deputy chairman of GSC at the moment. As far as local processes, since the year 2000, the concept of internet governance was introduced to the local community in Thailand, and that has been through this technocratic policy unit called the National Electronic and Computer Office. And NECTEC was part of the Ministry of Science, and much of this introduction to IG, to internet governance concept, was done through research and seminar, and much of it had to do with preparation of for the second round of the World Summit on Information Society in Tunis. So we had input from international organizations at seminars, like people from ITU, from UNDP, and UNSF. Anyway, after 2000, I think probably because of the change in the regime, because we had a coup in 2006, and after a lot of things were probably unstable, so we didn't see many developments for some time. And it started picking up in 2008, but this wasn't from internal, it's mostly from external, meaning, and it's from a different sector as well, because government has not been in the lead. The things have shifted a bit, and it's since 2008, it's the civil society who are in the lead in familiarizing or introducing IG to the local community, and much of it has to be credited to international NGO, CSO like Freedom House, APC, Citizen Lab, because they have funded members of the local civil society quite consistently, especially Freedom House to IGF and to Asia Pacific Regional IGF. And through this exposure, the local civil society members have adopted ideas and framework thinking in the IG framework and introduced it to the local community. And much of the activities from 2008 until today has been in creating resources, educating the public about IG, the need for IG, and also engaging different stakeholders into the IG processes, and also many civil society groups like journalists, people in professional associations were trained in workshops around IG. But I guess the most remarkable success was last year when they organized this first Thailand Internet Governance Forum. Oh, not last year, sorry, this last July. My mistake. This, year, yeah. This last July, we organized the first Thai Internet Governance Forum, in which, of course, we have to credit Thai Netizen Network. Thai Netizen Network was in the lead. They've been organizing things, the running horse of things, but they also got collaboration and support from a number of organizations. One of them is EDDA. EDDA is a government agency established a few years ago. Stands for Electronic Transaction Development Agency. It is an agency within the Ministry of ICT. And they are the big sponsor, and also NTC, which is the regulator, also the big sponsor. And if you can see the rundown of the names of collaborators, a lot of them are academia and also NGOs and so forth and so forth. And the event was organized at my office, my building at Chulalongkorn University. And in addition to the organization of this forum, this seminar book on internet governance was translated into Thai. The first edition actually was translated under the sponsorship, I think, of SIDA, Swedish International Development Agency, under the arrangement of SIPA, Southeast Asian Press Alliance. So you could see an alliance of a number of civil society organizations helping each other. And actually, the book was introduced to Thai Netizen Network through that connection with APC, Association of Progressive Communication. Anyway, so that was the first edition, and the second edition was the reprint was done in like a month later by EDDA, which is the MICT agency. Okay, those are good news about IG, about internet governance, but we have sort of not so good news as well. As you probably know, since May 22nd, 2014, Thailand has been ruled under a military regime. We have a military government. Our legislature are all handpicked by the junta, and a lot of things we haven't seen election like our neighbor, like Myanmar, for a long time. Mm-hmm. Anyway, this government is in a very well suited position to push a number of policies because they don't have an opposition to stir things up. So one of the policies that they have introduced is this so-called digital economy policy. And within this digital economy policy, it would necessitate amendments as well as passing of like 10 different new laws, ICT-related laws, and also the revamp of the ICT policy sector, introducing like this one, the National Committee for Digital Economy and Society. This is newly created and it will be chaired by the Prime Minister himself. So it will give direction for the entire policy framework under digital economy and society. And another one to watch out for is this one. It's called the National Cybersecurity Committee, which will be housed under the same office as the Data Protection Commission. So pretty much these two endeavors, cybersecurity and data protection, which actually have totally different flair, will be hosted under the same office. So that's, this package of laws and restructuring of the sector has been there has been a number of rallies in the civil society and in academia against this introduction, also led partly by Thai Netizen Network. So an online campaign was organized, and they were able to get like 20,000 signature against this new policy, and now they're slowing it down and making a major modification to it. Okay, moving on before I leave you guys. It's communication surveillance, and Thailand has been known to be quite a big surveillance society, partly because we have been a buffer state between the free world and the socialist communist world for a long time. Anyway, the latest update on communication surveillance came in July 2015, exactly the same month that we have the IGF, the first Thai IGF. So bad news and good news and bad news at the same time. This came after WikiLeaks released more than 1 million searchable emails from this Italian surveillance malware vendor called Hacking Team, and it showed all these workings in the industry and their buyers, and apparently the name of the Royal Thai Army and the Royal Thai Police as customers of its remote control systems, also known as Galileo and Da Vinci. But they of course, once the news broke, both organizations, the Royal Thai Army and the Royal Thai Police, denied having anything to do with this surveillance company or having bought anything from them. Okay, so that's mass surveillance, and nothing's confirmed, of course. But we see, I mean, what's more apparent to people's experiences online is what I call target surveillance. So target surveillance is when people, there's like a zero-in effort on certain social targets, especially dissidents. And the interesting thing about target surveillance in Thailand is that it's not only government who does that, but also individuals and social groups. And in Thailand, the Ministry of ICT recruited young children, maybe probably teenagers who are very technological savvy, to become what we call cyber scouts. So the cyber scout, as you can see, this is from their webpage actually. So the cyber scout will be trained to look for things that are online abuses. Oh, I didn't get the right page. But the right page will show you that their main target is against lèse majesté. Lèse majesté is a Latin word, I believe, but it means defaming the royal family. And royal family in Thailand is a highly revered institution, so and it's a grave crime to be insulting them. Most recently, 2 people were sentenced to 28 and 30 years to prison for their Facebook updates. 4 Facebook updates equal 30 years in prison. Anyway, so a lot of not only the cyber scouts that are organized by the Ministry of ICT, but a lot of people do it on their own as like a witch hunt for people who are disloyal to the royal family and their docs. They research and they publish, they broadcast people's personal information online and inviting people to lynch them online as well as offline. And there was also this organization called the Garbage Collector of the Kingdom. And this garbage collector, what they mean by garbage is actually quite a bit of a hate speech. Garbage means people who disloyal to the king. So this organization took it as their mission to rid Thailand, to cleanse Thailand of such garbage, such trash, because people who are not loyal to the king are equal to garbage in their point of view. Anyway, so that's what I have to share with you guys for now. I hope you could catch up a bit fast.
Thank you, Brong. Thank you. It's almost time. So we have covered Philippines and Thailand, and I hope you can stay here just in case there is questions after this, Brong. So we go to Burma. I'm afraid you only have 5 minutes, mate.
Okay, so I'm going to try and cover Burma as fast as I can, and we'll have a question and answer session. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask it then. Myanmar recently had an election, November 8th. I think they're in the process of counting the number of votes at the moment. In its first election since the military-appointed civilian government took over in 2011. So in terms of the consequences of that to internet governance, it remains to be seen, and I think it'll be interesting to look at how maybe different ministries or different government officials will be appointed to those ministries and how they will impact internet governance. I'd like to highlight just a few of our findings thus far. We've noticed that since about 2011-2012, online censorship as well as restrictions on print publications have eased significantly in Burma. Previously inaccessible media sources, both digital and printed, foreign and domestic, have become available. However, they still have challenges, namely draconian laws in the books, such as the telecommunications law, the electronic transactions law. However, it seems that the government has been involving civil society, or at least more so than they have in the past, in terms of deliberating laws, such as the draft telecommunications master plan, which was released by the Ministry of Communications, Post and Telegraph. And with regard to the telecommunications law, it was signed in October 2013, and since then, two telecom operators, Telenor and Ooredoo, have begun operations in the country. And similar to civil society groups, these companies have also expressed concerns with regard to the telecom law, because the licensing provisions under the law also establish state supervision over telecom services for the purpose of, quote, national peace and tranquility and for public security. So for instance, Section 77 says that the ministry may, when an emergency situation arises, to operate for public interest, direct the licensee to suspend a telecommunications service, to intercept, and to not operate any specific form of communication, to obtain necessary information and communication, and to temporarily control the telecommunications service and telecommunications equipment. So Telenor, for instance, has voiced some concern at the lack of specificity and oversight mechanism of the law. Aside from legislative obstacles, there are also non-legislative ones as well. For instance, our researchers have noted that the notion of privacy has no direct equivalent in Burmese. So it's very difficult when you're trying to introduce a legislative framework to safeguard privacy in the country. Other laws that are notable, and not in a good way, are the Emergency Provision Act, the Electronic Transactions Law, as I mentioned, the Computer Science Development Law. So the Computer Science Development Law restricts the possession of communications technology access without government approval. And aside from that, there are issues, for instance, with regard to land rights, because, you know, when a telecommunication company would like to build a tower, a cell tower, often they would have difficulty in terms of determining who the land belongs to. And Myanmar has a history of confiscating land for commercial use without acquiring the consent or compensating the owners. So this results in barriers in terms of increasing the number of ICT infrastructure in the country. And then I'd like to highlight our findings with regard to internet filtering and also digital threats. As I mentioned before, the Citizen Lab is part of the OpenNet initiative. We've been conducting testing in Myanmar since 2005, and we've been doing regular testing in 2005, 2006, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And we've noticed that content controls in the country has shifted significantly following the political and economic transformation process. Testing in 2012 that we did found that all of the political content previously blocked in the country was now accessible. And a small number of URLs, including like ethnic news sites or political blog, however, they have remained blocked. So despite some content remaining to be blocked in the country, it's a dramatic decrease from previous testing that we did, in which we identified hundreds of blocked websites. Also, aside from national level filtering by NSPs, the government has also asked companies like Facebook, for instance, as Facebook use has increased in the country, to delete accounts posting hate speech or personal attacks, especially during the recent election. And although government requests seem to be rare in Burma, so Google reported no requests from the government to take down content. Twitter also does not list Burma in their transparency report, suggesting that it may not have received such requests. Facebook, however, has removed content in response to government requests. They reported 5 pieces of content over the period of July to December, after reports from the President's office stated that the content violated the Myanmar Penal Code. And also, the fact that Myanmar has an underdeveloped communications infrastructure has led to widespread disruptions of internet service throughout the country. Myanmar was one of the first countries in the world to institute a countrywide internet shutdown. This happened in 2007 when the capital, when Rangoon actually was engulfed in protest. And connectivity was completely severe during the initial days of disruption, but eventually reduced to a daytime curfew. There's also been submarine cable malfunctioning that happened in 2009 to 2013, which disrupted connectivity in the country. And then aside from content filtering, the government also imposes controls with regard to accessing the internet through cyber cafes, because not very many people could afford in the past to have internet connectivity on their phone or at home. And so the government has released regulations for what are called public access centers, so cyber cafes essentially. So all cyber cafe users are required to register with their name, address, national ID number. They're forbidden from accessing political content or using USB keys or CDs to transfer data. They can't use email providers other than MPT, or I guess like the national email. And cyber cafe operators are required to take screenshots of user activity every 5 minutes. And must send CDs containing user browsing history to Myanmar government every 2 weeks. And then we've also heard about internet users being arrested, and even leading up to the 2015 elections. And then with regard to surveillance, Myanmar does not have a single piece of legislation regulating lawful access or communication surveillance. The telecommunications law that I mentioned earlier has been used as the justification to conduct surveillance in that country. And like I said, civil society groups and private sector have criticized the government because of the unclear legal environment regarding surveillance. And lastly, I will mention targeted attacks against civil society groups. So that's the type of research that the Citizen Lab has been conducting for a few years now. And we have heard of reports in 2012 and 2013 of journalists receiving warning messages from Google when accessing their email account, indicating that they had been targeted by state-sponsored malware. In 2015, so we published a report on this recently, we've seen digital attacks appearing to be related to economic development of the oil and gas sector in the country. In May 2015, there was an attack which compromised the website of the president of Myanmar, exposing visitors to malware which could collect keystrokes, screenshots, microphone, and camera. In 2015, also in 2015 in August, there's another report describing a similar attack, this time targeting the Myanmar's Ministry of Information site. And then, like I said, we published a report in October documenting a pair of attacks against an international NGO working on environmental issues in Southeast Asia. And although it's very, very difficult to attribute who perpetrated these attacks, these series of attacks suggest that the attackers are interested in monitoring the activities of groups involved in international investment in Burma. So unfortunately, I don't have much time, so I'll end there. Chita?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mailen. So I think I would like to open the floor for discussions or feedback for our research. Anyone? I will take three people to make a comment. No comment? Is there any comment? No. I think I would like to ask first. I don't know whether Prong will is there, so I would like ask the Philippines for the next elections, because election is pretty much a milestone for the country. So what do you think about the next election, and how is the net governance and information controls will look like? Your prediction?
Well, as far as the Philippines is concerned, at least one of the presidential candidates has significantly included internet governance issues in her platform, especially in her public statements. Uh, she has particularly focused on the fact that we have one of the slowest internet connection in the world. She has zeroed in on that and taken advantage of the fact that the current administration has not been able to address this particular issue. Incidentally, connecting that to surveillance, this is the same candidate who is pushing for one of the leading legislators pushing for the mandatory SIM card registration in our country, pushing for a national ID system in the country. So, and it turns out she is also the leading, as far as the polls are concerned, she's the leading candidate and most likely to win the presidential elections.
I would like to ask, okay, one question. Please give me your name. I don't think they have the mic. Or you can come here. Oh, they do have the mic. Please mention your name and your organization or your country, please. Thank you.
Hello. Okay. My name is Manat from Thailand, from the Electronic Transaction Development Agency that people wrong just mentioned. It's not a question, just the observations about the research. I think you lay out a good strategy on the situation on each country, comparing each country as well. But I'm just thinking about regarding on the internet governance that you try to respond. If you can further explain about how the civil society responds on that kinds of the content controls or even to communication surveillance, that is might be to give the reader to look at how each country, particularly on the communities that use the internet governance approach to respond. That's kind of the thing that the country as well. I know it's different country have different approach, but we try to look at whenever the people in the community try to gathering together and use the internet governance approach through the multi-stakeholder discussions, what the result look like on each country, particularly on this kind of issue. This might be the lesson learned, and other country might be to learn from the different country aspect as well. The second thing I think might be useful if you can to lay out the ecosystem on each country regarding on the ICT strategy, and to bring back to the what kinds of the culture that I'm sure that the cultures might be the factor that's people to gathering to respond on the internet governance issue and relate to with the national government's policy, and then how the people at the country to react each other to come up with some kinds of national strategy. This might be useful for the other country to look at the comparisons country strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Banas. Is there any questions? I take two more questions from the audience. If not, you. Yeah.
My name's Patrick Curry, and I'm from the UK. And forgive me, I missed the early part of your discussion. But how do you see the changes in digital economies and businesses, international business, affecting what you've been describing?
more questions? If not, then I think we go to, one more questions. Sir, senor.
Hi, Kasama Hongsmak from Thailand, from the government. And of course, governments are evil. I just have a quick question. Do you see this internet governance thing and surveillance issue getting better or worse in our region? I mean, we share some similar characteristics. Probably something can be drawn like a conclusion or a trend. I mean, I just want to know how you feel, if it's getting better or worse or why and why.
Thank you very much for the question. I think I would like to ask from colleagues from the Philippines first to answer, then Ian.
Hello. So I think with regard to what ma'am was actually saying, well, there's an ASEAN ICT master plan right now, and I think by November or December they're trying to launch it. We don't have a copy of the ASEAN ICT master plan, but I think we're the only government, or I mean, we're the only country who has done consultation with civil society and technical community and private sector. So we had some inputs on, well, small inputs on the government's proposal to the ASEAN ICT master plan. But we, of course, we won't know if they will be adopting it in ASEAN, because as you know, ASEAN value is really about consensus, and if you have one country who doesn't really like progressive policies or policies that respect human rights, it might be difficult, or we won't be able to see those proposals on the master plan. So there, but I think it will still be the same, because the thing is, right now we're not seeing any progress in terms of making sure that civil society has a voice in ensuring that human rights is in the center of the ICT master plan. So, and our government is actually telling us that they'll try to champion it within the ASEAN, but the thing is, they're also they admit that it's difficult. So
I'll respond to the first question, since it has more to do with my area of focus, which is on communication surveillance in particular. Um, as far as civil society is concerned, or in the Philippines rather, and our organization to be specific, as far as communication surveillance is concerned and all the issues surrounding it, the way we try to handle issues on this particular matter is that as much as possible, we try to lead in surfacing all these particular issues. For instance, the problem with the current implementing rules, the way it has revived a provision in the cybercrime law on real-time collection of data unlawfully. We've tried to call the attention of lawmakers, of some of the petitioners who challenged the statute, in order to engage with them and to consult with them and possibly collaborate with them into pursuing another challenge directed to these implementing rules. Now, as far as impact is concerned, I think I mentioned a bit earlier about this workshop we conducted just recently, last Thursday, on communication surveillance, and we tried to adopt the multi-stakeholder approach. Although we, as opposed to a general invitation, we prepared a specific list of possible invitees, and we directed our invitations to these individuals, to these organizations, and tried to put them in a roundtable discussion. And fortunately, we were able to successfully do so members of our intelligence agencies attended the workshop, members of the private sector attended the workshop, media, and other civil society organizations like Amnesty International, in order to discuss all these issues on communication surveillance. It turns out one of the issues surfaced is that our own surveillance laws can be so burdensome, so bureaucratic, so to speak, such that our own intelligence agencies, without them directly admitting it, but somehow in hinting that rather than go through the process, for instance, of securing a proper court warrant or in order to conduct a lawful or targeted surveillance, the burden, the demands of this particular law has forced many of them, of course, they speak in the third person, referring to their colleagues as if they were coming from different entities or agencies. They say that that's probably why they have all these rogue agents pursuing extra legal means of conducting surveillance because of these laws that inherently are in fact flawed. And upon looking at these laws, we actually arrived at a consensus that there are some changes that could be made into these laws, such that they would be still effective law enforcement tools as far as the government is concerned, but at the same time, they could be more rights-based, protecting many of the civil rights of the public, particularly the right to privacy. So that's how we try to engage or respond to all these issues. And so far, at least, we foresee that the government, especially those who attend our workshop, would be willing to collaborate more into discussing and to improving these agencies, not so much to make them more powerful as far as surveillance agencies are concerned, but to be more responsible in exercising these powers. But that's a caveat, I suppose, or disclaimer. Our workshop, 2 days before our workshop, state agents, members of the counterintelligence units of our police actually visited first our office and tried to check, according to them, if we were a legitimate organization. They tried to find out if we have criminal records and so on and so forth, which is ironic because the police asking us if we had criminal records, they should be the ones who have our records if we have any. So there was some veiled, I suppose, threat there, but we should mention that that particular unit is different from the unit of the police that attended our workshop. But it highlighted the fact that they are disorganized. They're not talking to each other.
I don't know if you mentioned that this workshop is actually hosted by the Commission on Human Rights as well, which is a national human rights institution. So I think it's important to note that in most Southeast Asian countries, national human rights institutions are very significant organizations to partner with, to be able to mobilize government organizations or law enforcement agencies to be able to talk about human rights in communication surveillance and cybersecurity and so on. So, yes, about the digital economy, connecting to what I've said about the ASEAN ICT Master Plan, which is a very, it's about the economic integration of the ASEAN. It will be a part of the ASEAN economic blueprint, which will lay the plan for the economic integration that should be happening by this year. So number one, a priority of the Philippine government is actually to really promote economic development or accelerate the development and growth of the ASEAN's ICT industry and services. So it's like the heart of that of the ICT master plan, and I think it, of course, the business sector. Well, we can just um, maybe I don't know, but I think we will see if the business sector will be able to benefit from it. In the Philippines, the business sector is actually clamoring for a creation of a department of ICT, but our government hasn't really been helpful in making sure that there will be this ICT agency. So I don't know.
I would like to just add from Indonesia experience on the digital economy that our minister just rolled out the digital economy plan, and I think it's affecting the ecosystem of the ICT, not necessarily yet the internet governance, but maybe will affect the internet governance. I go to Mbak Iren.
So I'll try to respond to all three comments. The first comment regarding including civil society's responses and what their impact has been, I think that's a great comment, and that is certainly something that we will strive to do, especially when we're talking about the future of internet governance in all these countries. And you mentioned how culture affects ICT strategies. I think that's a great comment as well, and something that I believe we included in our research when we looked at Indonesia and it's how it's a Muslim majority country and how that then impacts the ICT strategy that the government then pursues. So thank you for the great comment. Regarding the entrance of new businesses, from what we've seen, at least in the case of Myanmar that I mentioned before, we know that Myanmar being a neighbor of China, China invests a lot in infrastructure and also in natural resources in the country. And what we are seeing, the impact with regard to information controls and targeted attacks is that as new investments, new businesses come into the country, it seems like it has opened a new battleground for civil society groups and the public who live in that country. As I mentioned, the targeted attack that we saw recently on Burma was directed towards an environmental NGO, and supposedly this attack happened after they met with a corporation who operate in the country. So obviously with new investments, new businesses come economic development, as a benefit to the country, but then I think that there are other ramifications as well. With regard to the third comment about trends in the region, other groups like Freedom House, they've done great research on this, so I won't comment on that. As far as our research is concerned, we've seen that recently, especially with the Snowden revelations, civil society groups and the general public are more aware with regard to privacy and security issues, and have organized, like in Southeast Asia, there's SafeNet, Southeast Asia Freedom of Expression Network, that aim to mobilize civil society groups and pushing their respective governments to be, to be more aware of human rights issues when they're talking about issues like surveillance and content control. However, what we are seeing is that governments face challenges, and maybe it's because they're reluctant as well to come up with a comprehensive, accountable, and transparent legislation regarding content controls and surveillance. In Indonesia, for instance, a report that we published in 2013, there are 16 different rules and regulations concerning wiretapping and surveillance. These different rules and regulations empower the different agencies and ministries that they govern with by their own budgetary powers and the powers to purchase their own surveillance equipment or wiretapping equipment. And so it's a challenge to turn the 16 different laws and legislation into one comprehensive one, because obviously maybe some agencies or ministries would lose their budget or would lose their powers, right? So I think that's the biggest challenge. Like I said, I think from an awareness perspective, there's been rising awareness, but then the challenge is how can these civil society groups and how can people push for governments to come up with accountable, transparent, and comprehensive legislation.
Thank you very much, all the panelists and the speakers. I think we running out of time. We only have like 8 minutes. One of the things that I would like to update you all is that the research result will be launched in end of this year, ya, Mbak Irene, ya. And it will be in Creative Commons. We will inform you all, so you can all download and a bit further, and perhaps as Banesh from Thailand was mentioning, learning from each other. So thank you very much for the good discussion. Thank you very much for the panelists. I think you deserve all applause.